here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome back to Outside the Sheds. Shedheads, I take a deep breath right there because I'm getting ready to drive. We've got 2 to 3 incredible rounds, depending if you have buys or not. I've got Mountain Dew in the back. I've got coffee on my side, meaning I've got to stay amped. I've got to stay focused because we are about ready to get into uncharted territory because this 2025 season is out of control. It is out of control. And if you're making money this year, congratulations to you. You know, I can't even bet on the NRL over here in the Divided States. But that's okay. That's okay. We still do our picks, and sometimes we're ingenious with them, and sometimes we go, well, maybe the mortgage business is a better place for you. I don't know. What I will say is NRL, thank you very much, because week in and week out, they continue to perform. They continue to give us games that we always have talking points about when they finish. And like I said, this season has been magical since Vegas all the way through. It's just, you cannot determine what's going to happen week in and week out. Now, before we go any farther, because we're going to talk about that in the deep dive here in a couple minutes, let's start the breakdown of round 24. And what an epic did we got to start with. Storm 22, Panthers 18, and I'm going to say this, it was a game that felt like a finals match, did it? It had the ebb and flow, it had the ups and downs. Penrith looked incredible in the first half. I think they were 19 for 20 or 19 for 19 possessions, meaning that they just were not making any type of miscues. It was strange to see Cleary with the headgear on, but, and I'm going to tell you something, I like my ears, Shedheads. I like my ears, they're a little small for my head, but I'm a big fan of my ears. And one of the things I'm very fond of my ears is I don't have any type of damage to them. And I heard the injury that Cleary had to his ear took multiple drainings. And, I no thanks. No thank you there. A punch to the eye, a little black eye, that's one thing. But, when you start messing with your ears, I can't do it. Anyway, I digress. I apologize about an ear thing, but it is what it is. So, it had it all, Both teams played up to it, but, that's what Bellyache does. He allows his teams to never feel like they're out of the fight, and they proved it again with Grant pulling the Houdini in Golden Point with the fake dummy and then charging over, getting the try. And a lot of people want to go back and talk about the kick that was not counted because of a little bit of a blocking. We're going to talk about that because, like Ivan and Nathan said in their interview after the match, that had a key important, outcome to how the game finished up, I guess you could say. But there was other places and other areas where they had a chance to really put them away. And again, they had the game at their fingertips, but one bad miscue by Blaise Talangi and the entire feel of that game changed, did it not? I think a lot of people haven't talked about that a lot. And no matter what a talent Blaise Talangi is, sometimes to be a Penrith man, you have to pull the ball down. You can't go for the flashy play. And that's something I guarantee you Ivan Cleary talked to him about this week. There was no need to make that. They were grinding the Storm down. They had them where they wanted them. And one miscue, that's all you need to give Melbourne. One miscue like that. One overplay of the ball. One, let's just be dramatic. And everything changed. Everything changed. But, again, none of us can be upset because we got the game that we were hoping for. We just wish a whistle wasn't something that, kind of culminated in some of the things. But great match by both teams. And for some reason, I'm having that feeling that we might be seeing this again. Warriors 14, Dragons 10. That's a big victory for the Waz. That is a huge victory for them. They're back in the top 4 again after that Penrith loss. And if you looked at it, all the money was kind of going the other direction. The Dragons have been playing such good football recently. And the Waz just stayed in the fight. They just stayed in the fight. They just kept staying in the fight. And if you look at some of the Waz teams from the past, that is something you would have to say that they have not been the strongest with in that. Sometimes they just weren't ready for the tussle. And no matter how much I love SJ, some of those teams that Sean Johnson was in just didn't want to get dirty in some ways. They wanted to score a lot of points, see if you could keep up with them, but they didn't want to get in the trenches and get into a fight. And that's what the Waz are now. They're a team that has no problem getting dirty, getting into a little bit of the wrestle, but then they still have that flair and that flash. And that try assist by RTS when it looked like he was going out, that's just some magical stuff. I wish, if you guys have just come into the game recently, and I know most of you listening to this show have been, rugby league heads for a long time, I do wish that RTS was still back in the fullback position so we could watch this guy get his hands on the ball more frequently. And I know a lot of people think that he's a little bit older and blah, 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 but who cares about age? Look at James Tedesco right now. So I just wish we got to see him more with the ball in his hands, because one thing about Roger, the more he gets the ball in his hands, the more dynamic you get to see him do things. But that was an incredible try assist. Big victory for the Waz. Pompey gets the double. That is going to go down big. And we could, like I said, this is just going to be a back and forth. It's going to be like a clay court match at Roland Garros where it could be 45 strokes to win a point. Meaning it's going to take right to the end for all of this to be decided before we're all said and done. Roosters 32, Bulldogs 12. The Chooks make it 3 games on the trot. They get into the top 8. And they poke some holes in the Dogs of War. A couple weeks ago, everybody was talking how, we don't need Sexton. Lockie Galvin's going to be the man going forward. And now you hear these pundits talking about, was it the smart decision? And you can't have it both ways. You know what I've said on this show, that I would not have touched Toby Sexton. If Lachlan Galvin's going to be such a great player in the future, let him be a great player for the future. Let him earn that Bulldogs jersey. Braithen Nass has said it plenty of times that to be a Dogs man, you have to earn that jersey. And I truthfully don't think Lachlan Galvin's earned that jersey. It's not that he's not good enough to be in that jersey, but has he earned that jersey? And Sexton has done it. Reed Monty has done it. And all these guys have been kind of shuffled away. And you have to look where that team was at when they move these players on. I don't know if a team has ever done that. I don't think in the history of the game a team, except for injury, has changed their halfback while they're in the top spot on the table. And I know it's Brash Gishkas by Cameron Serraldo and Gus, but I'm telling you right now, this match this week is going to say everything about the Bulldogs going forward, going into finals. But the Chooks continue to impress. We're going to talk about them a lot more here in the deep dive, but big victory. Sharks 54, Titans 22. The Sharkies scoring 10 tries. Maybe Buzz was in the sheds talking to him before the game. I don't know, but 10 tries, impressive, especially how they've been going recently. And again, they consolidate that top 8 position, and that's where everyone's fighting for right now. And again, we just have no idea what Sharks team we're going to get week in and week out. To me, I'm going to say this right now, and this has nothing to do about Cronulla. This is my disappointment in the game. We've been talking probably for the last 3 to 4 weeks how great Jaden Campbell's been playing and how he seems to be breaking out and becoming that player a lot of people thought that he was going to be in that 7 jersey. And he was non-existent. Now, let's be honest, Shedheads, we know that there's a lot of things that go on in everybody's lives. You guys don't know 100% what's going on in my life, except for what I talk about on this show. And I don't know what a lot of you are going through, all right? So maybe something big was going on in Jaden Campbell that we'll never know. Maybe a family member was sick, who knows? But he just was not engaged whatsoever in that match. And I think we're seeing right now, no matter how great of a 5'8" Kieran Foran is, at this point in his career, Jaden Campbell's got to fire if they're going to do anything. And again, he was non-existent in that game. And the Titans can't win without Jaden Campbell playing a major key part in their flow of what they have to do in the game. So that was kind of disappointing. But the Sharkies, again, big victory. And again, the fight for the 8 continues. Broncos 38, Dolphins 28. Down 14 in the second half. You know, this is what they talk about. Madge talked about heart. He talked about the Broncos teams. And I'm not going to say this is nothing about Kevy, because I love Kevin Walters. But let me ask you a question. Even before Kevy, okay? In the last, since I'd say 2017, 2018, would we have seen a Broncos team in such a key match that they were having or in against a rival club like the Finns are, come back and show the heart they did to get back in the game and to win it going away? And I'm going to say no. I was blown away. I was more looking at if the Dolphins were getting ready to put up a big score more than I was thinking that the Broncos were getting ready to get into a Corvette and blow past everybody towards the finish line. It was impressive. It was almost like they flipped the switch. And how they show in the movies where the guy hits nitro and their face is all contorted because of G-forces. That's what it was like. And by the time it was all said and done, I kind of sat there just kind of in awe going, that really just happened. Because I really thought the Finns were getting ready to run away with that thing when they were up by 14. But again, they keep their... We're going to talk about them too here, because we're going to kind of have an all-around breakdown of some of the major teams and some of these big victories and some... missteps the teams did here right in a second. Rabbitohs 20, Eels 16. What can you say? This has everything to do with Clint Eastwood. This has everything to do with the coach, the man, the myth, the legend. It has everything to do with it, because really the Bunnies have had nothing to play for besides pride. I'm saying they've got Jai back there at fullback, but then Latrell is out, right? But then Cody comes back in. It's right now, it is a revolving door of players. Who's healthy and who's on the mend. It's like a mini-series that you could watch on the CW. I don't know, wait a second. Down Under, you guys might not have the CW, but it's a bunch of young, teenagers and up, young 20s shows, and all of them have drama, right? And that's what the Rabbitohs kind of seem right now. They just are always in the fight. They're always in the wrestle. Who's healthy? Who's not? It is a revolving door, and I did not see them being able to piece that together to get over the top of an Eels team that looked like they were on the march. Mitchell Moses had them going in the right direction, but the Rabbitohs came out there, and maybe that's what it was. Maybe the Eels just thought that they were not going to have to fight to get the victory, and that was proven wrong. And I'm a little upset about it because I picked the Eels. Thanks, Dom. But yeah, so big victory. And again, a couple weeks ago we were saying that they were in the prime position to get the wooden spoon, and now everyone's wondering if this team is getting ready to make a big push late in the season, not to make it to the finals, but just to distance themselves from the bottom of the table. But that's a huge victory. And if they keep getting more healthy with Cody being back, and he's going to try to feel the game out a little bit. Brandon Smith has been, the hectic cheese has been playing more and more in the dummy half position. So maybe for the first time, and I know Rabbitohs fans, you're hoping to hear this, maybe finally we're starting to see a little ascension by South Sydney. But big victory there. Tigers 26, Seagulls 12. Tigers make it 2 in a row. I don't even know what to say in the standpoint except for one thing. There is momentum and happiness in Tigerland. That's right. Madge isn't walking in with baseball bats like the freaking Untouchables to get people motivated. Benji has a team, and this is something important to say. Benji has a locker room right now where everybody that's in that locker room wants to be in that jersey. And that is huge. Because over the years recently, you've had guys half in, half out. You've had guys that people, the team isn't sure if they're settled with this guy or not. Everybody who's playing for the Tigers right now want to be playing for the Tigers and are playing for that jersey. And it shows. Because on the other side of the field, Manly looked in disarray. Besides that opening try, which was brilliant, by the way, they did not. This is a team that a lot of people thought had a chance to be in the top 4. And you can pin a lot of it on DCE and his coming out and saying that he's going to be leaving the club at the end of the season. Sure, great. Yeah, that's got to be a little bit of a foundation shaker for a club that's as proud as Manly. But at the same time, they still, and yes, they've had injuries, but so have the Dolphins. And they have underachieved. There's a reason that Anthony Seibold is on the hot seat. Some people say that he's not, but he's got to be on the hot seat. And it was just a bad performance. It was a bad performance all the way around. And the Tigers could sense it. You can see when you watch teams play, when one team knows that the other team is somewhat engaged and somewhat not engaged. The Tigers knew that Manly was somewhat engaged, and they were fully engaged. And with that victory, they still are in the titles, the finals hunt. And it's been a long time that they have not been in anything more than the wooden spoon hunt. So, big victory. Hopefully they keep building on it. And, with the big 2005 showdown with the Cowboys coming up this in round 25, it's going to be really fun to see what they do, because that could be a really, really fun game against North Queensland. Toddy Payton, he's got investment in that 2005 Tigers team, so he's going to want his team to play the best. So it's going to be an epic match. I'm excited to watch that one live on the last match of the round. And then finally, the team we just talked about, North Queensland, Cowboys 38, Knights 4, in a game that was never close. And that's my problem for Adam O'Brien right now, because I really don't think Adam O'Brien should lose his job. I really don't. I think with the injuries they've had, they've never been able to get their real footing in. But that being said, a team still has to show a little bit of fight to show that they're fighting for their coach, right? And they were never in this match. And it's not that North Queensland was just this juggernaut team that was coming out of the hills like giants in some type of Dungeons and Dragons thing. We're just going to mow everybody down. No. The Cowboys have been struggling themselves. Todd Payton, it should be called the hot seat bowl, since we're all in the bowl mode right now. That almost seemed like the hot seat bowl between Payton and O'Brien, right? But one team was definitely there to be playing that looked like they wanted to play well for their coach. And one team, maybe because of injury, we know that they're missing some key pieces. But, they were bombing tries, and it was just a bad performance by Newcastle. But big victory for the Cows, like I said, setting up that 2005 huge matchup with the Tigers on to close out round 25. Now, Shedheads, I said for the last few weeks that this 2025 NRL season is going to be a complete powder keg as the season comes to an end. Meaning that there is going to be shaking up all over. It's going to be like being in San Francisco if a few plates start shifting, if you know what I mean. It's going to be that type of movement. It's going to be that type of instability that some teams are feeling, and it's going to be fun for all the rest of us. Now, if you've got a team in the fight, it may not be as fun because there's no guarantee some teams are going to make it in the top 4, and there's no guarantee that some teams are going to even make it in the top 8. We know that. But this is going to be some fun times coming up. And the unpredictability of this whole thing is, look at your Shedadamus. He went 3 for 7 for his picks last week. And I never would have thought that. But teams that I thought by no means had a chance of winning won. And that is why, if you gamble for a living, more power to you, because I would not have any hair on my head. But I'll say this right now. Yes, the Panthers, as we go in this dive, yes, the Panthers and the Storm gave us what we wanted, right? They gave us that match that we all wanted, a finals feel, both teams leaving it all out there. It lived up to expectation. But it was tough to see a call be made that became a determining factor in that outcome, right? And I think we will all agree that when you have a big game, you don't want a whistle or a penalty to be something that changes the outcome. I'll say that right now. Leota made a step to his left in front of Harry. You know, it was the case. He did make that move. But the way that Harry Grant went down drew attention to the situation more than it would have been. All right? That's my problem with that. Was Leota 100%, in the right? No, he was not. He was not. Let's be honest. But if Harry Grant doesn't go down like a rifle sniper just hit him, or a sniper didn't hit him from 1,000 yards out, would the referees have been as quick to blow the whistle or say that there was a bad play being made? Because a lot of people feel, and as I watch the play more and more, Harry didn't really go for the block. I mean, go for the to put his hands up to knock the ball down, because he's one of the shortest players in the field. First off, no, he went to go draw the penalty. He ran towards Leota, and he was hoping that he was going to get a call. That's why he was so quick to go over. Because if he was trying to fight through that block to get his hand on it, Harry Grant he's a little pit bull, right? He's all muscle. He's not a big guy, but he's going to definitely get through just a little sidestep by Leota. That's just not how it is. But the problem is, Harry Grant is a state of origin player, Shedheads. I'm not calling Harry out on this. What I'm calling out is, unfortunately, right now in the game, guys are going down, faking injury, trying to get penalties called way more than any of us want to see in the game. And I'm going to say something right now. I used to be a huge fan of the EPL. I'm not going to say teams, but there's a team that I really, really followed. And I loved it. It was during that time in the EPL, you would have had to have taken a baseball bat to somebody's legs to make him go down. It was just straight raw footy. If you think about it, those days, you had Alan Shearer, Mark Hughes, Eric Cantona. You had guys that they couldn't spell the word dive back in those days, right? And I played soccer my entire youth. I was a midfielder. I could run for days. I was strong. I was fit. And I never once went down from any type of injury unless I was really hurt. And I got really hurt in a match. And I was finding every way that I could to continue to play. Now, I'm not calling rugby league players into question, because we know, watching some of these guys fight through the true injuries that they have, that they are warriors, plain and simple, right? Like, some people are in the back line getting freaking tape put on the side of their head with just a little piece of gauze, right? And the guy really needs stitches, but he's not leaving the field, right? We're just going to tape him up really quick. We'll deal with it afterwards. That's the type of toughness we're talking about, right? So that's my problem, and that is what pushed me away from watching competitive soccer, is because I want to see the top athletes do their thing, not fake their thing, right? And I barely watch it at all. I barely watch the game at all anymore. I got one of my friends really, really into the EPL, and he still watches it like there's no tomorrow. But I have not. It's been a long time since I've watched a full soccer match, just because of that reason. And what makes me scared about this whole situation is, what I don't want to have happen is, when we get to finals time, that a penalty because a guy fakes an injury costs a team their season, and something isn't blown that, like I said, costs somebody their season. I guess what I'm asking for is, I'm hoping that some integrity comes into the game late. I've always said my thing about that is, and I know Harry's situation isn't because you couldn't do that, but some of these guys who fake injury or go down like that, that they have to leave the field for a certain amount of time to make sure they're okay. And the other thing you could do, they have diving penalties in the NHL. If a guy gets, you can give him a card or he can get a penalty if he fakes an injury like that or fakes an embellishment. That's what it is. It's an embellishment. But again, when I watch that situation, that scenario, I just hope that we don't have a team that costs when it's all said and done and we get to the finals. So it was a great victory by the Storm. Penrith can't say anything because they had other chances. They had the game in their hands until the Blaze Talangi flip. But that is the type of match that we want to see going forward, and I think that's what we're going to see. Now, the other factors, and like I said, we're going to do a few breakdowns of some key things that I saw this last weekend. But with their victory over the Dogs, I was asking the question, do I really feel that the Sydney Roosters are for real? And if they're a real threat to the competition and to the top 8? And for me, the answer is 100% yes. And there's one guy to me that's changed the entire flow of the Sydney Roosters right now, and that's Hollywood Sam Walker. Sammy Walker's playing incredible footy. And he makes me laugh because he doesn't seem like he's the most athletic guy, but then when he needs for it to be turned on, he becomes an athletic guy, right? He kind of looks like a guy that might be playing in the band a little bit, I don't know if that's a big thing. I know everybody has a school band, but, high school band over here in the Divided States is a little bit different. They're not considered the most top-tier athletes in your school. But the guy's got it all. He's smart. He knows the game. He knows the flow. He knows when to kick. And then you got his partner, Savala, the guy who's got a thunder stick for a right leg. I'm saying him and Burton they can boom the ball. And that's why these two are now the new engine of this Roosters team. And what really gets them going. You got a great guy at the short game, and you got a guy that can kick you out of bad situations. So when you have halves pairings like that, it does change your fortune, right? And yes, the Roosters are for real. They are for real. And this halves pairing we're talking about have a lot of people questioning, and that number one person questioning is old Uncle Nick, if they made a good call by allegedly going to bring in Daly Cherry Evans next year. And I'm going to say right now, after we watch Savala, a guy on $80,000, and DCE, a guy on a heck of a lot more money than that, play the game right now, why would I be sitting Savala down to put DCE in? A lot of people think that, well, he's going to help Sam Walker have structure, and he's going to help set things up. Hey, I'm going to say this right now. Sometimes the best way to learn is by playing. And if you sit Savala down, and you move Walker and you take away that kind of third world sensing that Sam Walker has, I think you're messing with a situation that doesn't need to be messed with. And you could ask the Canterbury Bulldogs about that. Should you be messing with things? But that halves team is key to what's going on right now with the Sydney Roosters. Yes, the halves are great. All right, let's think about this for a second. Yes, the halves are great, Shedheads. But we know what the wheels of the Sydney Roosters car is, and that's James Tedesco. A guy right now that is probably leading the Dally M, which is fascinating to me because the guy is maybe the best fullback in the competition, right? But for some reason, he can't get the nod because people think he's old hat to be the fullback for State of Origin, the captain of New South Wales. Which, to me, no matter... I've said this time and time again, Teddy would have still been my half. I would have never pulled James Tedesco. And this has nothing to do with anybody else that can play the halves position or the half position. But, the fullback. I don't know why I just said it. The fullback position. Excuse me, Shedheads. I am human. I would not have messed with Teddy. I would have left Teddy there. And And it gives me credence with that because the guy is probably going to win the Dally M. And he just keeps getting better and better and better and better. Like, listen to his numbers this season right now. He's got 9 tries, 16 try assists, 145 tackle breaks, 18 line breaks, and he's averaging 198 running meters a game. Do I need to say anything more? James Tedesco, playing for a Roosters club that a lot of people thought was just going to be a down year, that they were in trouble 100%, was just not going to be a good season for the Roosters, has continued to almost act like he's got second life and that he's playing with this younger team because he is one of the older guys on the team. But these young guys have invigorated him. And they've got him believing again and enjoying his footy, because if you watch Teddy, there's true excitement and happiness as he's playing the game right now. And if you look at the remaining schedule for the Chooks, they've got the Eels, the Storm, and they close it out with the Book of Feuds against the Rabbitohs in round 27. The fate is totally in their hands because you know the big road bump they're going to have to get over if they really want to make a deep push. They've got to get over that mental hurdle of beating the Melbourne Storm. And they're going to have a chance to do that. And if they find a way to do that, you better watch out, because that team to say they're a Smoky is an understatement, because they are straight what I just said. But they've got to get through it, because there's no guarantees of where they're at right now that they're even going to make the finals. But do I think they will? Yes, I do. Now, I will say this. Those teams were great, title fight between, the Storm and the Panthers. The Chooks looking great. Yes, I do think they're going to make the 8. But the most impressive performance by a team this last round was the Brisbane Broncos, because that performance they had probably saved their season and gave the entire fan base belief that maybe the season isn't over. Maybe there is a chance. And I'm going to say this right now. For a while in that match against the Dolphins, it did not look like that was going to be the case. Because the second half comeback that the Brisbane Broncos had was, again, I just said that a little while ago, something we haven't seen from them for quite a long time. Being down 14 points with 28 minutes to go, a lot of teams are checking out. A lot of teams are thinking about what they're going to do. A lot of what they're going to eat after the game. All of that. But that team refused to lose. And I know in a rivalry game, teams get up. But don't forget, that worked for both teams. And the Finns were flying. The Dolphins looked like they had the game on a string. They looked like they were in charge. They looked like there was nothing that was going to stop them from continuing to progress and get things done. And then all of a sudden, like I said earlier when I did the quick breakdown, they flipped the switch. Brisbane did. And they went right past them like they were standing still. And the guy to me that you look at that was everything for that club in that match that just would not let them lose was Reece Walsh. First off, if you look at Reece Walsh, something's a little different with him right now, right? Yeah, no, it's not his upper lip. It is the fact that he doesn't look like the mummy. He's not bandaged up right now. It's the most healthy I think we've seen Reece Walsh maybe since like early rounds. So when you got a guy that's built that is straight power and speed and dexterity, he can't be that same type of player if he's taped up like the mummy. So he's now feeling good. He's now feeling free, and he just took the game over. He just took like I said, I've got his numbers too. 6 for 6 for conversions, 249 running meters, 2 line break assists, 1 try assist, 12 tackle breaks, and 154 kicking meters. He was everywhere. And the thing that they said, and Ben Hunt said this, when you got a guy like Reece, you want to get the ball in his hands as much as you possibly can so he can create. And that's what we got for him right there. And I also think, we've been watching Reece Walsh for a while, and he's a young father. but he's still a young guy, right? He's a young man. Things are still just starting to slow down for him. A lot of people have said a couple years ago that he had the potential to be the best player in the game. The best. And now that people have kind of forgot about that because he's not the young kid on the block anymore. He's been around for a little bit, so a little bit of that new car smell is worn off him. But let's remember what they said. He had the potential to be the best player in the game. And he took over that game. I'll say this right now. I've been up and down with the Broncos this entire season. I sometimes don't agree with the way Madge does things and comes across or whatever you want to say. I'll say this right now. If Reese Walsh plays the way that he has been playing these last couple of weeks, and especially what he showed against the Finns, right? If he can keep that same type of form and he can stay healthy, even without their preferred halves combination, I think the Broncos are definitely in the finals, and I think the Broncos are a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous side. Because I think if they make it to the finals, that whole pressure of getting the finals will be lifted off of them, and now they can just come out, with their ears pinned back, and they can just attack. So it all comes to me down to Walsh. If Walsh can keep his intensity and this level up to where it is right now, the Brisbane Broncos are going to go places. That's all I'm going to say. So there you are. There is our little deep dive into this last round of what I thought. But as we go into the 40-20, boy, like I said, I hope you're already salivating right now. Hold on, I'm looking down at my Garmin watch, and my heart rate is just increasing. It's increasing. And yes, I just mentioned my Garmin watch. I'm not even sponsored by them, but that's something else. We can talk about that later, Garmin. But Blockbuster. One of my favorite words, Blockbuster. Listening to people say Blockbuster in other accents, other languages, I love the word Blockbuster. And yes, I don't love the word Blockbuster the way that I used to, because it used to be, what video are we going to go get at Blockbuster? And then your whole weekend might be shot because it's all checked out. Okay. I just dated myself right now. But I will say this right now, for all of you who are laughing at me, there is still a Blockbuster video open in Oregon, the great state of Oregon, one of my favorite states in the divided states. Oregon still has a running, working Blockbuster video. So to me, that's awesome. Okay. No, when I'm using the word Blockbuster right now, it describes Friday. And you're, what? That's right. We have two Blockbuster matches on Friday night in this round that are going to be key moments in this season, because the victors are going to set themselves up for staying in the top four, and losses could make teams spiral out of control. That's how big these matches are right now. And it kicks off on that first one on Friday. We have the Raiders versus the Panthers in Mudgee. All right, I know Ricky doesn't like going out to the country too much. Mudgee is not one of his favorite places to go to, especially when he's playing the boys from the foot of the Blue Mountains. He's going to have to get over it because that's where he's going. But I'm going to say this right now. If the Baby Greens win this victory, if they beat Penrith, they will be the minor premiers. Yes, Willow, I said that. They've got to beat Penrith for them to be a shoo-in for me to be the minor premiers. And I think they can do it. I think they can win this game. They've proven to me time and time again, it doesn't matter where they're playing, what time they're playing, in what weather condition they're playing. They can win this game. The problem for them is they're playing an angry Penrith Panthers side. You're playing a Penrith team that feels they should have made it 10 in a row by beating the Storm. They had the game where they wanted it. I've told you I'm not going to get on Blaise Talangi anymore about his no-look flick pass that cost them probably the game. No, this is a team that knows where they have to go. This is a team that's won four trophies back to back to back to back. They know what they have to do. And they know for them to get where they have to get and to achieve what they want to achieve, that they've got to get in the top 4. And they're playing a young squad. No matter how dynamic the Baby Greens are, they're a team that right now is in kind of uncharted territory, a little bit. But I think it's going to be very, very tough for them to get the victory to start off Friday night. It's just going to be a tough game for them. Do I think they can win? Yes. Do I think they will win? You're going to have to wait for my picks. But I think it'll be very, very difficult. But that kicks it off. And to me, the defense is going to be the key. That is the factor that's going to win. Which team is going to have a major defensive statement and performance is going to be the team that, as they would say, gets the chocolates when it's all said and done. So, yes, we're going to have 2 teams that can put points up, but the winner is going to be the team that finds the defense. So, I cannot wait for that. Nation's capital, Team Milk, stay strong because you might want to get those peptides in your stomach because this is going to be a nail biter all the way through. And then for the nightcap, 2 versus 3. Down in Melbourne, you got the Storm versus the Dogs of War. What more can I say? Bellyache, once again, in the limelight. The Melbourne Storm, exactly where they want to be. Closing out a big night. They're riding the wave and the high of beating Penrith. And that's going to take them some ways. Their young halves combination, Wishat's going to play in the 7. So, yeah, it is what Melbourne is. That's all you can say. They're getting their game together late. They're getting themselves prepared and ready for the finals. And they know if they can lock this game down and get the victory, that they probably cemented themselves in the top 4, possibly even in the top 2. And then on the other hand, you have the Dogs. A team that's trying to find themselves. A team that really laid an egg against the Chooks. And a team that's questioning. Now, they might not say it on the outside, but everybody else is saying it. They're questioning the fact of the move that Serraldo made in the halves, in the dummy half position, but most importantly, that number 7. Dropping Sexton, putting in Lachlan Galvin. I just said that a little while ago about Dogs players having to earn that jersey. You're now asking a 20-year-old kid, young man, whatever you want to say, to produce in the most pressure-packed game that he's ever played in. Away from home, when you've got one of the best coaches in the history of the game that is going to be isolating him, putting pressure on him, and doing everything to unsettle him that they possibly can, legally and not legally. Let me just put it to you that way. They are going to try to ruin Lachlan Galvin from the core out. And if that doesn't put you a little bit nervous if you're, from Belmore, I don't know what else would. Because that is going to be, we're going to find out Lachlan Galvin's chops on Friday night. We're going to find out what this kid's really made of. Because he's going to be playing a team that has beaten some of the best. It is going to be interesting. But for me, the pressure really isn't on Lachlan Galvin. The pressure is on Cameron Serraldo. Because Serraldo is the one that was not happy enough with what he had going. Him and Gus thought they had to upgrade, make changes to a side that was flying. So to me, that's where the pressure's at. You can always look at Lachlan Galvin and say, well, what did you expect? He's 20 years old. He was put in a situation when he was way before he was ready. Blah, 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 blah. So that's, to me, where the pressure is going to be at and why this game has got everything for us to watch. But we're going to find out if chemistry really means as much as I think it is and why I've been saying time and time again on this show that I would not have made the move. I would have left Sexton and Reed Monty in their current positions because, again, why fix something that's not broken? But I can't wait. Friday is going to be a treat. It's going to tell us a lot about how this finals is going to, set up, where these teams are going to finish to end the regular season. It's there's not often that we can say it's can't miss television. And that's what we've got. Blockbuster. Anyway, I had to say the word one more time. Now, with Payne Haas committing, Shedheads, to play for Samoa, we've seen a lot of talk recently over international play, the international game. And with that, we've had some players say that they want to leave and go to, play for Samoa, play for Tonga. We also, I think it's just breaking that Tino is saying that he is recommitted to playing for Australia, which is catching a lot of people off guard because a lot of people thought Tino was going to join Payne Haas and go over to play for Samoa. So that's good for Australia, if that's the case. I'm just saying it's being rumored that that's what he's going to say. But a lot of this, and what a lot of people are asking now, with these players like Victor Radley and everybody's saying they're committing and playing for other countries, is they're asking the question is, should state of origin be affected by teams playing for other countries, right? And I know you got to be tier 1. I know all that too. And if you guys don't understand that, please look that up. But I think that's really silly. And I'm going to say this, and I hope you take this where I am. Some of you are going to say, Mike, you're not Australian. Okay, I have a big rivalry where I'm from, right? It's Texas against Oklahoma, right? If you look on the roster for Oklahoma, I'd say 70% of the players are from the state of Texas, right? Does that make them not Texans? No, they're still Texans. They just play for Oklahoma. So what I'm trying to say by that little freaking let's go down the access road, why should it affect you playing for New South Wales or playing for Queensland if you play for England, as long as your birth certificate says you were born in Queensland or New South Wales? I think it's also hilarious that if you look at Payne Haas, if you look at Jerome Luai's, their passports, they're Australian passports. They're Australian citizens. All right? They have roots from Samoa, and they have family ties that are very, very strong. Families that are, they're Australians with Samoan blood. And that's what they want to go represent. But that shouldn't change. That doesn't change the fact that their passport says they're still Australians, right? So why should that ever affect them? As long as they were born in Queensland, as long as they're born in New South Wales, why does it matter who they play for internationally? They're still Queenslanders and New South Welshmen. That's who they are, right? So that should be it. What does the birth certificate say? Where were you born? Okay, good. You play for Queensland. Okay, good. You play for New South Wales. I do not understand why we have to make everything so difficult. I do not understand why we cannot just say, yeah, that's not, we're not redesigning the wheel. It's still going to be a circle. Literally just going to put some different treads on it, right? So let's not make it difficult. Let's not jeopardize how great state of origin is by keeping guys from playing in it, especially if they're Queenslanders and guys from New South Wales. That's all that matters. Okay, I'm done. That was my diatribe. I had to go off on this because don't forget, I'm not born in New South Wales. I'm not born in Queensland. I've been in both of them and love both of them. Wouldn't mind living in either one of them. But that right now is in the future. But come on, guys. There's only two things that should matter. That's it. One, period. Truthfully, where were you born? That's it. Done. Now, as we go in around 25, let's try to flip this switch, get some better picks this time. I'm not going 3 for 5. I'm telling you right now, I'm calling my shot. That's right. I'm going Hamilton. I'm calling my shot. Thursday, we kick it off. Dragons versus the Rabbitohs. This game is, of all the games this round that have made me go back and forth, this is the game. I'm going with the Rabbitohs, though. Right now it's saying Latrell is not playing, but I do think, even though the Dragons have looked better recently, I think the Rabbitohs get them. I just feel that the Rabbitohs are going to get on a streak, and it's going to make the Book of Feuds, round 27, just be an epic clash that could make it where if the Roosters win, they're in the finals, and the Roosters lose, they're out of the finals. And I cannot wait if something like that happens to what we see on the field in round 27. But I got the Bunnies over the Dragons. Friday, here we go. Blockbuster. Raiders. I just sound like Vince McMahon. Anyway, Raiders versus the Panthers. Ooh. I told you I love the Baby Greens. But I told you it's going to be tough because of what happened and what Penrith knows they need to do. I'm going with the Panthers over the Baby Greens in Mudgee. And then the nightcap, Bulldogs versus the Storm. Come on. You tell me who picks against Bellyache's boys this late in the season, playing at night, playing at home. I got the Storm over the Bulldogs. Saturday, DCE's 350th game. We've got the Dolphins versus the Sea Eagles. I'm going Fins. I think the Dolphins have the strike. I think Cody Nicarima is going to have another week of playing back in the halves with the Katoa. It's going to be good. I got the Dolphins again, putting the heat on our guy there. You know who we're talking about. Warriors versus the Titans. I think that the Titans have won. What did we say when they beat them last time? They beat them like 10 times in a row or something horrible like that. But I'm going with the Waz over the Titans. I think that they finally get a match over Gold Coast. I know they beat them both times last. They beat them 3 in a row. They beat them 3 in a row. The Titans have beat the Waz. But I think that ends. The Waz finally get off of the snide and get the victory over Gold Coast. And the nightcap for Saturday night, Roosters versus the Eels. I'm going with the Chooks. I think this team knows what they have to do. I think this team is ready to try to make their run, and I've got them beating Mitchell Moses' boys to close out Saturday. Sunday, Broncos versus the Knights. I know, unless you're a Brisbane fan, that you probably should get paid to watch this one, but I'm not paying you. I'm just taking the Broncos to beat the Knights. And finally, at Leichhardt, to end round 25, you've got the 2005 matchup. They're going to be celebrating. Cowboys versus the Tigers. And I've got the Tigers. I got the Tigers making it 3 in a row. I got them winning and winning handedly. Did you hear me say that? I got them winning handily over the Cowboys. So let's go over the picks again. We got the Bunnies, the Panthers, the Storm, the Fins, the Waz, the Chooks, the Broncos, and the Tigers to close it out. My gun of the round. All right, so he doesn't have 100% impressive numbers on everything here. I'm still going my gun of the round. Daniel Tupou, 3 tries, 108 running meters, 1 line break, 3 tackle breaks. The thing to me about Daniel Tupou, the reason I picked him is he was an unstoppable force against the Dogs. And he just gets tries. That's just what this guy does. He just scores and gets up and acts like he's picking up a box of Frosted Flakes off the shelf at your local grocery store. He's nonchalant. And he's one of the coolest dudes that I've met, too, Daniel Tupou is. But Daniel Tupou, my gun in the round. Shedheads, that's closing us out. I'm looking check. Oh, boy, the heart rate, talking about Blockbusters, got me over the top again. But, again, have a great week. Take in these games. I hope you enjoy them as much as I will. Take care of one another. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught, like I say occasionally. But until next week, this is Corey Jackson. You've been listening to Outside the Sheds. See ya.
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends and show them what Australian sport is all about.